Thursday now being my new day off, it's a day that I don't normally have a video scheduled. So I mean, next week's actually week of what if and who would win, so that's going to be taken care of, no problem. But on the weeks where it's not a week of, and I pretty much don't have anything planned, I feel like maybe I'll just do a random video. Not like what I did last week where I did like 3 random videos just by stuff I want to talk about, but maybe just 1 or 2 videos where I just talk about something I want to talk about, along with recording who would win for the following day. So today, I just want to do a random video. In this case, we're talking Magic. Magic, I'm a big fan of it, and I'm probably going to get a box of the Commander Legends because I saw enough stuff in there I like that I want to get a box. And I'm looking forward to Caldo. That's looking cool. Heard a lot about I've seen. But we're talking Planeswalkers today. Particularly, what type of Planeswalkers could we still see? I mean, think on that there's still plenty of sets left in Magic's career. Plenty of years, easy. And each set usually brings about 3 Planeswalkers, roughly speaking. Usually it's 1 to 2 returning Planeswalkers or 1 to 2 new Planeswalkers in there. Characters that are, the characters that can traverse the worlds, and we see it in the ongoing story. And obviously it's usually the big selling point of the sets. I'll admit, I wasn't a big fan of the Planeswalkers we had in Battle for Zendikar. Aquarias were cool. I've got too many Lucases and 1 Narset, so I do got, nail. A little bit of a hang-up. I have a couple of those. What came before that? Some of the stuff, look, the Planeswalkers in Theros are pretty decent too, cool too. I do have a Rowan. Rowan and the twin Planeswalkers. I do have a copy of those. Yeah, I mean they're always the draw to most sets in some way. I mean, there's obviously things that most players look for besides Planeswalkers, but they're always the big draw. But one of the big complaints I've always heard is that we don't get enough diversity. We got plenty of female Planeswalkers at this point. When you really break it down, we actually have a very good... There might be more male Planeswalkers, but there's definitely a better ratio now than there was. I'm just going off the top of my head, literally just right now off the top of my head. From the original set forward, going on from Lauren when it got introduced, there were 2 female Planeswalkers, 3 male Planeswalkers. You introduced Elspeth, that made it 6, but then you had Sarkhan, you had Sorin, and you had Nicol Bolas. That made now 6 male to 3 female. Then Nissa got introduced along with Sorin, and that basically then made it to a 7 to 4 ratio. Then you had Karn's genderless, which is a completely different category of representation. Same with Ashiok. Ashiok's genderless too. But you just had Koth and Venser. So then it started to become kind of uneven. But then you got Tamio, or Tamio, depending on how you pronounce her name. Tamio, and then Tybalt. Then you got Vraska in there. Then you get Ral, who's also a gay character, which is something that's more representation, which is cool. Domarod's in there. Kiara's in there. Obviously Narset, Vivian, Jaya. So while it's definitely a heavy male... Oh, and can't forget Kaya, who's, from from the little bit of spoilers I've seen, or at least implied spoilers, she will be on Kaldheim. There's also, Kasmina, who got introduced, Sahili, I should say, not Shahili, Sahili. I think words here. Huatli, or Huatl. What's the other one? The red-green Planeswalker from Samut. So there's been a lot of great advances in representation over the years. But more honestly, the bigger thing I hear more than representation, just in terms of gender or identity, is kind of veering away from the human Planeswalker. Now, what I mean by human is I literally mean the human race, species, card. When you look at the vast majority of Planeswalkers we get, the majority of them are human. Now you get the oddball out, which is either Kiora's a merfolk, Sorin's a vampire, Angrat's a Minotaur. There's a Goblin Planeswalker that we haven't gotten in the main sets yet. Nahiri, I forgot Nahiri. Nahiri's a core. So, I mean, there are non-human Planeswalkers, but there are very few non-humanoid Planeswalkers. There have been one or two. Like, again, Azor, who, spoiler, I have an image up here of him later on, but Nicol Boss and Ugin, obviously, but they're very few and far between. So while it's cool that we get the human Planeswalkers, I feel like, because they are probably the most, they are probably the Planeswalkers that are species that dominate the multiverse in terms of the amount of that race. I think it is important that we think of where else can we go with Planeswalkers just besides humans. And I do think there are plenty of options. Now, I'm only going to really show off 5, although I'll probably bring up a couple others. But what we really need to first break down is how does something become, what is the definition of a Planeswalker? And a Planeswalker is an individual who has a spark they were born with that ignited and allows them to traverse the multiverse. Basically, that's what it is. It's the equivalent of casting a spell. Now, with that being said, there are limitations. Certain species can't become Planeswalkers by natural means. They can become artificial Planeswalkers like a Karn could. Karn is artificial. He's a golem, but he was given a spark, so he can traverse the multiverse. Demons can't become Planeswalkers, but Omnixis technically was able to circumvent that as he started human. Ultimately, he lost the ability to use his spark, but regained his ability to use his spark. In fact, he never lost his spark. That's a very interesting little story note. Angels naturally can't become Planeswalkers, but in theory they can be given a spark, similar to like Karn can. Furthermore, the way that it's defined in lore is that any sapient species can basically become Planeswalker, but anything like that's artificially created by the plane that's not naturally born, basically not like a non-biological entity like an elemental or a phoenix or something, cannot become a Planeswalker. But here's the thing about this, is that it's described as non-sapient, mostly humanoid, but exceptions are made. Any species technically can be a non-human Planeswalker, or it can be a Planeswalker. But they also define it like as a mage has to have. It's like that part actually doesn't make sense to me. Why does that have to be a mage? Because, I mean, think about it. I mean, in theory, a dog could... Because how a Planeswalker spark ignites is basically is through a period of trauma and stress that basically awakens the spark, activates the... Snap my finger down. There we go. Activates the spark. Now, because Planeswalker is considered spell casting in some way, maybe it's because you need to know how to channel your mana, but we clearly see other individuals can channel their mana through other means. So I don't quite go with the idea of a non-mage not being able to planeswalk just because they like at the very minimum the spell they could cast would be planeswalking. And we've seen other individuals have abilities that aren't magical in a sense, but still probably draw from mana. So I don't know. I don't quite go with that idea. But anyway, let's talk about some ideas we could have here for planeswalkers, and what types of planeswalkers we could see or should get or whatever. So I mean, one I saw on Mark Rotter's Blogatog is Turtlefolk. Now this guy is from, actually I can't remember his name, but he is actually from the new Commander Legends set. And first off, we haven't met Turtlefolk as a whole in the multiverse yet. So this is first off a species of creatures of cards we can get later down the road, depending on the plane. Given the type of plane this guy is on, by the way, I've already guessed where he could be. What is? Oh crap! Not Olgroth. What was the name of? It's the same plane that Imperiosaurus and Muragaraga. I can't remember the name exactly. Muragaraga. It basically kind of turned into Ixalan, unfortunately, but it was like a prehistoric world. Or I think it's the other one is like Fiora or something like that, where its giant plant life covers the whole the plane, like a giant dense rainforest. That seems like a natural plane for this guy to be in. But yeah, Turtlefolk are a race we have not seen, and I think that would be really cool to see. First off, just to see them, see what kind of species they are, creatures they would be, more or less. They'd probably be very heavy on their toughness, and maybe a couple of them would be pretty powerful with their power as well, but most of them would probably be like very peaceful spellcaster types. A Turtlefolk would be really cool. Now, what kind of abilities could you see a Turtlefolk Planeswalker have? First off, it would depend on what kind of abilities they naturally have. My guess, first off, from a type perspective, these guys would definitely be green first and foremost. But you'd probably get either a combination of white, blue, maybe even a black in there now and then. You could definitely see a more evil one, because I believe this guy's actually a green, black, and blue creature. So yeah, a Sultai color Planeswalker that's a Turtlefolk probably isn't out of the cards. In terms of what they could do, I doubt you'd see much in terms of like token making, unless he's something kind of like a Nissa where he can shepherd, grow Stafferlings or something like that. He probably would give some sort of buff or be some sort of enchantment type Planeswalker where maybe he manipulates enchantments, fostering growth, maybe life gain. Maybe he prevents damage in his final ability. Anything's really on the cards, right? He wouldn't be a damage, or it would not be a damage-inducing Planeswalker, really, of any kind. That's just not what Turtle would really be designed for him, I guess. Just because he wouldn't be red. Black, if he had black, maybe, but that's pushing it. We talked about Azor before. Let's bring up Sphinxes again. We know we've had a Sphinx Planeswalker in the lore. It's all a matter of commander at this point, and it would be commander. Or, well, actually, we have Future Sight 2 coming. And another Modern Horizon 2. It's possible, because we got a Sarah Planeswalker in Modern Horizon. It's possible we could see Azor's Planeswalker card in one of those sets. But my best guess would be a commander set, because that's where you can really go to you can go through the entire timeline of Magic in a commander set, no problem. Whereas there are still sometimes limitations in the other sets. But more importantly is that while we know we've had a Planeswalker, the Sphinx Planeswalker, we have not received a Sphinx Planeswalker. We haven't received one. We don't have we don't have an Azor Planeswalker card. And, I feel like it's got to be on the way, whether it be Azor or another Sphinx. I feel like it's got to be on the way, because you can't tease us with the idea of a Sphinx Planeswalker and just give us the creature as it is now, not the Planeswalker. You can't do that. So I have to imagine either Azor or another Sphinx is coming down the way. And it would make sense, because it's definitely a route we haven't gone yet in terms of Planeswalker cards. Almost certainly it'd be a blue... it would guarantee be a blue creature, no doubt. Blue-white, blue-red, blue-black even, blue-black-white. Usually Sphinxes tend to stay mostly in the blue and the white category. Guaranteed, because they're the iconic creature in blue. So more than likely they'll stay in that realm. But outside of that, we do have blue, white, black Sphinxes. We do even have red Sphinxes too. I believe there's one blue red Sphinx. I think the only color we haven't seen a Sphinx in yet is green, now that I think about it. And that would be an interesting route to take a Sphinx. Because one is if I remember the philosophies correctly, green is the kind of like the color of destiny, growth, and, peace in some way. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see a Sphinx go that route, honestly. Actually, I'd be down for it. So yeah, I think we're just due for a Sphinx Planeswalker. Another one that I love to see, because I love reptiles, is a Naga Planeswalker. Now, this one fits better into the category of a humanoid Planeswalker. Nagas, despite the fact they have tails and no legs, are still humanoid-esque. They're still humanoid in shape to some degree. They are a race of individuals. They are sentient. They are very much self-aware. I'm using Sidisi here as an example. Of course, in the new timeline, there's no way Sidisi could be a Planeswalker. She's a zombie now. That would also be an interesting concept. A sentient, like a Lich Planeswalker. Now, a Lich couldn't naturally become one, but they could take a spark and become one. A Lich Planeswalker would be pretty badass, now that I think about it. Can you imagine that concept as a character? Like, as a new big battle Lich Planeswalker? That would be horrifying and awesome all at once. That could be a planeswalker who's so dangerous that they have to pull Bolas out of exile. Be like, okay, we can't beat this guy on our own. Uga's like, oh, I'm gonna regret this, brother. You try anything? He's like, oh, if I try anything, trust me, you won't be alive to know it. And Bolas comes in. It's like, so how can I help you? It's like, there's your because that's honestly the way I see Bolas coming back. Because Bolas isn't dead, we know that. And to be told, although a lot of people got tired of him, Bolas is still one of my favorite. Actually, I like Ugin even more than Bolas because he's got a cooler design in my mind, and he's just a cooler character. But I still always loved Nicol Bolas because he's a freaking dragon. Come on, he's a freaking dragon planeswalker, and he was bitch smacking anyone who came in contact with him except for Ugin. Ugin and him were pretty evenly matched, honestly. In fact, Ugin was implied to be stronger than Bolas. That's why Bolas had to kill him. And how he killed him was through trickery, quite frankly. So, but yeah, that's because we know he's coming back. That's more than likely the way he comes back is there is a threat so large that they need the extra power, and Bolas is that extra power. But back to Nagas. Nagas, I think, would be very cool to try to experiment with, see where they go. Nagas also had the benefit, especially after we've seen Tarkir and Amonkhet, had the benefit of basically being able to be either green or they can be in the black. Mostly they're green. They are mostly green, but they at minimum are green. But they can also go into the Sultai colors as well. It'd be interesting to see it'd be interesting to see if we ever got a Naga that is red or white. That would be kind of cool. But I mean, as a secondary color, they're all green just because of the way they are. But a Naga would be very interesting to see. Now, in terms of what a Naga planeswalker could do, that's anyone's guess because that all depends on the card. Because all the Nagas in like Tarkir, for example, they were all pretty different. Now, the Sultai did deal with Delve as their mechanic, so a lot of them did put stuff in the grave. There was self-milling involved. But I don't know if we'd actually see any sort of mill. We might get something, especially if it's tied to Delve and Tarkir. If, for example, the Naga Planeswalker came from Tarkir and not like think words. Amonkhet. Like the Amonkhet Nagas are not the same as the Tarkir Nagas at all. And if we saw Nagas on another plane, like if the Snake Folk turned into Kamigawa, if the Snake Folk on Kamigawa turned into Nagas, they would probably look very different from the Nagas from Tarkir or Amonkhet. So yeah, Nagas I think would be pretty cool. Then we got Centaurs. Now that's one a lot of people have been asking for, is a Centaur Planeswalker. I'd be lying too if I said I didn't think it'd be a cool idea to see a Centaur Planeswalker. Just because it's a race of and there's also dwarves too. Forgot dwarves because they recently got reintroduced pretty heavily into the Magic universe, and we're said to be getting them in Kaldheim if the miniature leaks are anything to go by. Or Kaldheim. Kaldheim. I think it's Kaldheim. I think it's Kald Helm. So I think it's Kaldheim. I have to hear someone actually say it. And I have. I just can't remember how they said it. Yeah, dwarves, because they got a big reintroduction in Kaladesh, and people loved them, and they were there also in Throne of Eldraine, and from what I understand, they're going to be showing up in Kaldheim, which makes sense. Norse Viking kind of world. But yeah, Centaur Planeswalker would make a lot of sense. Now, this, like the other three I've gone over, would be primed to be like a new green-red Planeswalker. Like, we haven't had enough of those recently. Like what? I'm trying to think here. Summit, Domer. Oh, actually, Domer's dead, so we can scratch him off the list. Sarkhan's no longer a Gruul Planeswalker. Last I checked, he was just mono red, but then a lot of Planeswalkers that were dual color came in as mono color in that War of the Spark. But last we checked, he was actually Teamer colors. He was red, blue, green. So now that I'm thinking on it, while we were getting a lot of green red Planeswalkers for a while, I think it's kind of tapered out now. I can't think of the last green red Planeswalker we had right off the top of my head. Apart from Summit and Domerad, and in Amonkhet, Ravnica Allegiance, and War of the Spark, respectively. Okay, so yeah, actually, we would be due now for a new green-red Planeswalker. So yeah, I mean, a Centaur, specifically because of the Centaurs that come from Ravnica, you could actually be primed for a new green-white Planeswalker or a new green-red Planeswalker. Now, obviously, it all depends on where they come from. And, Centaurs can be other colors. Like, there is green, black, and white Centaurs, at least from Commander. I haven't seen a green-blue Centaur yet. That would be cool. Like a Simic Centaur? Oh my god. Next time on Ravnica, make me a Simic Centaur. It can be combined with anything you want, but make me a Simic Centaur. Oh, that'd be awesome. Because you see, this is the thing when we just talk randomly and just thoughts talk about stuff. Things that come to our heads, we're like, make a Simic Centaur. That's like, I'm just thinking of what the Centaur could be. Like a combination of a Centaur, and most Simics don't use mammals. Mostly they use like amphibians, fish, reptiles most of the time. So maybe like a long-legged crocodile with maybe like an octopus tentacle for a tail or something. I'm just spitballing here. Throw me an idea in the comments. But yeah, so because of what you see most of the time, Centaurs are either green, green-red, green-white, or white, surprisingly. They can just be mono-white. They don't normally go into the mono-red, and I've never seen any of them in blue. Very rarely do they move into black. Because remember, it's color philosophy. It's philosophy about your nature and how you use magic. So black is certainly not out of the realm of possibility for some Centaurs, from what I can tell. Like, again, another villainous Centaur, that's very possible, absolutely. And again, blue would just be very odd, but again, I'd love to see a Simic Centaur. That'd be pretty awesome. So Centaurs, definitely. Last one I want to talk about, and I actually brought it up when I talked about my creatures for Kaldome, I believe, is a Hydra Planeswalker. Now, this one's definitely left field a little bit, but I've actually really expressed my interest in a Hydra Planeswalker for it. Now, at least in other videos that weren't specifically about it. So, technically speaking, you can have a Hydra Planeswalker, like the definition says. It needs to be a sapient, which technically Hydras, all living creatures technically are sapient. Basically self-aware and all that. But more importantly, apparently it has to be a mage. And I don't agree with that. Like, again, creatures can channel, like, for instance, dragons aren't natural mages. Like, elder dragons were, clearly. Bolas and Ugin both were mages and sorcerer and magic users. But the dragons, for example, channel mana to use their fire breath or breath weaponry. So that's enough. That's similar to using a spell. So how is that not not enough to figure out how to planeswalk? That being said, this could be a good avenue to create a Hydra mage if you wanted to make a Hydra planeswalker. Because I just like the idea. We don't see, of all the iconic creatures, when you think about it, of the color space. Angels, all angels are sentient. Like, all angels are intelligent, can communicate, all that. Sphinxes, same. Demons, despite being cruel, same. Dragons are hit and miss, but dragons mostly seem to be on the more intelligent side of the spectrum than just ferocious, dumb animals. But Hydras we don't get that. We don't get intelligent Hydras. We don't get a Hydra that is able to communicate. That might be because of the nature of the color of green. But honestly, it would make more sense for Hydras to be able to communicate than dragons to be able to communicate. Just because red is about aggression, passion, rage, just acting on instinct. Whereas green is a bit more about destiny, growth, growth and strength in its own right. So honestly, it would make more sense to see eventually a sentient Hydra composed to a dragon when you compare the color philosophies a little bit. But I think first off, it would be cool to see branch out beyond just a Hydra mixed with something like a goat Hydra like we got in Commander last year, or the new Chimera Hydra, or a Snake Hydra. Branching to something different with Hydras, because Hydras, frankly, are my favorite iconic creature of the color pie, because there's just so many designs you can do with a Hydra. How do you make the multiple head thing very unique? But and again, this could be your next Nicol Bolas when you think about it. What about an Elder Hydra mage? A Hydra that actually did gain sentience, that was actually intelligent, and was actually, I mean, think of it like this. Think of it kind of like a King Ghidorah scenario, because Ghidorah is kind of a Hydra. He don't have to give it flying per se, because it'd be a planeswalker. Or at least if you made a creature like Ghidorah, and then actually make Ghidorah, don't just put Ghidorah's face on a card and say, "Hey, this is Ghidorah." Which still, that was the one card, and I got like a collector box of Ikoria when it came out, because I was working a lot, saved a lot of money, so I went whole hog on Ikoria. I got nearly all of them. I didn't get Ghidorah, and that burns me so much, because Ghidorah's awesome. But have it like a Ghidorah thing where he is an eater of worlds, that his goal really is to devour. Isn't unlike Bolas, who kind of can drain the power of planes but leave the planes husk. No, he's actually eating mana of the world, of the planes he goes to, and leaving them as nothing, just nothing. Maybe even eating the actual planet, if you will, as it is. Or, it's just, he's just an evil planeswalker who just devours or something like that. But it's still actually capable of talking and maybe even negotiating, maybe even having minions if he so desires them. By the way, I'm using Omnivorous Hydra here just as a image. Because honestly, I always like the art on Omnivorous Hydra. I think because it's like a shielded head with no eyes. I always like that. But more importantly, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I think you could do something with this. It would be real. Now, what the Planeswalker itself would actually be able to do is very, suspect. It's very questionable what this thing could actually do. I mean, that's why I do understand why it has to be a mage in some degree, because you have to focus on what are the mage's abilities and how those translate to a Planeswalker card. So I do get it from that standpoint, but I'm sure there's workarounds for that, certainly. Maybe you can spawn little Hydras that, you have to pay life or something like that. And you can make a XX Hydra or whatever. But the problem is, if you don't have enough life, then there's no point in doing that. So let's just assume you drop it on the turn one. You make, you still have all 20 life. Most people wouldn't be dumb enough to do that. There's ways to cheat that too. You make like a 1919 Hydra, give it haste, but someone just says no, stops it. Doesn't hurt it at all, but or doesn't actually, deal damage to your life, but stops it, and then they just come and ping you. Like no one would actually be doing that. So it's not a bad idea. It'd probably also be its minus ability, not its plus ability. Its plus ability would probably be like doing damage, or maybe even like destroying a land or drawing a card or something like that. There is stuff you could do here, absolutely. And generally speaking, do I prefer Hydras as creatures that I can play with? 100%, let's be honest. But do I think it would be cool to try to really branch out into what you could do with a Planeswalker and with a creature type that hasn't really done a lot of experimenting, except with what exactly creatures are going into the Hydra part of it? Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Look, this is ultimately just my opinion. I just felt like talking about Planeswalkers today in Magic. What kind of Planeswalkers do you think you could see down the road, or would you like to see? Maybe it won't happen. I know a lot of people have been calling for a Sliver Planeswalker, but when you really break it down, that really doesn't make sense. Slivers I don't think are natural beings, and B, they're a hive mind. The reason Slivers are so dangerous if you play against Sliver deck is because they all share the same ability of every other Sliver. So if you make a Sliver Planeswalker, then they would have to share all the abilities of all the Slivers, and the Slivers will all have the abilities of the Planeswalker. That seems really broken, and but at the same time, it could work, but no, it would be actually pretty broken. Now, a Planeswalker that cared about Slivers, that is different. You could make that, well, it wouldn't be a Sliver though, that's the thing. It'd probably be a human, or maybe like a Phyrexian that's gained a spark or something like that, or something along those lines. It would not be a Sliver, but it would be something that cared about Slivers. Obviously, its plus one would have to be it makes a Sliver. Maybe, and then its minus is probably it searches for a Sliver. So there you go. And it probably would be like a 1/1 Sliver, but it searches for a Sliver. And then finally, its ultimate would probably be reveal the top whatever cards of your library, probably like 5, 6, or 7, and then put any number of Slivers onto the battlefield. That would probably that is a very easy card to make now that I just said it. I'm amazed Wizard hasn't done that. Probably because of the what the backlash ultimately would be. And because slivers are a very specific tribe. Ultimately, though, this is just my thoughts. What kind of planeswalkers do you like to see? What kind of planeswalkers do you think we'll see? Well, what kind of planeswalkers do you think we'll never see? Are all my ideas phooey, baloney, poo, or are they all good ideas, or some of them good, some of them bad? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, though, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll get to a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything to do with the channel. Put that in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to that at some point. Hit that bell if you want notifications. I'll see you. Well, technically, I'll see you tomorrow. Later.